What else do you need in your life? Are you not entertained coming along with us here on the SportsGrid Network?
They have regressed horrifically in the 3 years that he's been in charge. They are a disaster. They are a sinking ship.
Casey, why you bugging?
Well, I must ask, did you see Caitlin Clark, by the way, Dubsy, nearly take a couple of people's heads off with her tee shot today? I mean, how great was that?
I've never seen anything closer to Sharapin on the golf course until I saw that video of Caitlin Clark.
They are anemic. They can't stop a runny nose. Their defense is as bad as the Jets.
I don't know how anybody looks at the Jets and wants to lay anything with them except lay down and just, and die at this point here, Ben.
The Jets will always jet.
I hate them. Give me Duke minus 6.5 tonight.
Now we live in a society, it's not fair. We need 12 teams. It's not fair. We're going to have 16 teams, 24 teams. What the hell are we doing here?
I think UConn actually wins the national championship if they can stay healthy. Little side note for everybody.
In women, South Carolina,
all right,
big favorite.
Oh, no. In both.
Kentucky gonna fall off that map, man. Don't worry about it. Flat Earth, they fall right off, Kyrie Irving style.
Yeah.
It's the Dallas Cowboys, and they're ran like a Pee-wee football team. Yeah. I can't believe this.
Like people enjoy saying Knickerbockers. They're like
saying Knickerbockers, except you.
Losing to who? The Detroit Pistons? What? How do you do this one, Spo? Come on.
He's going to give deference to Georgia because of the G on the side of the helmet. I certainly understand that.
Those of you that watch us every night, we really do appreciate you.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to hour number 3, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. It is our third and final hour on this Tuesday, and there is so much to break down. He is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. Some more NFL conversation to start off this third hour. It is night number 3 in our third hour of the 2024 Emirates NBA Cup and a monumental matchup between the reigning NBA champs in the NBA's best team in Boston against the NBA's best record in the Cleveland Cavaliers. What a game it will be tonight in group play in the NBA Cup. We'll break down all the action on the hardwood, a look at some action in college basketball, Maction on a Tuesday, college football playoff rankings predictions, and Jon Rothstein will join the show later on in this third hour to look at the action now into the third full week of a college hoops season. Joe, there's so much, a sample of everything here across the sports landscape in this final hour.
Yeah, there really is, and we're already starting to get, colleges firing coaches here. Everyone's on the hot seat in the NFL, and yeah, this is the time of year, Ben, where the hot seat gets turned up a lot for coaches across all of these sports.
Yeah, absolutely so. There's some lame duck coaches in the NFL that we have already discussed. Looking at you, Mike McCarthy in Dallas and Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. But, Joe, at the end of week 11, we've got 7 regular season weeks remaining. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 in this 18-week regular season. And the playoff pictures around the conferences are starting to crystallize. Certainly those divisional races after some monumental matchups that we saw in the Week 11 Sunday slate. So we wanted to hear from the people and their thoughts on the highly competitive AFC. So that's what we'll do right now by hearing who is the best bet to win an AFC crown in Fade the Public. Which team is the best bet to win the AFC Championship? We listed the 3 favorites right now, and then if you felt like, hey, it could be the Chargers or the Steelers or the Texans, we hope that you selected other. Not many votes for other. It's really a race, Joe, between those top 2 teams where Buffalo with a plus 290 price, second best in the conference, 70 cents now behind Kansas City, has most of the vote, more than 48% going with Buffalo. So, Joe, are you fading the public?
Hey, listen, I get it. And there does appear to be something different about this Bills team this year, although it's following the same script, right? Another win by the Bills over the Chiefs. They are also the first team, I believe, that not only handed them their first loss, but the first team to score 28 or more points against this Kansas City defense. And by the way, Josh Allen, first player to actually have 4 wins against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So we know the Bills can beat the Chiefs, but none of that is going to matter if they don't do it in January. And that is the problem here. So the Bills, great win, but none of it is going to matter. They have everything in place to beat Kansas City in January, but until they actually do, I wouldn't be running to the window and betting them, Ben. It's the Chiefs to lose until we see otherwise. So I get why they like Buffalo and why they think Buffalo has the best shot, but the reality is it's Kansas City's AFC crown to lose this year again.
So that was my selection as well for a couple of components. Of course, as you alluded to, and of course, as is deserved, the playoff pedigree. 2 consecutive Lombardi trophies, 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, an appearance in the AFC Championship game in all 6 seasons that Patrick Mahomes has been a starting quarterback. And Joe, last year was the perceived year to knock the Chiefs off their perch in the AFC. They would only host 1 game in Super Wildcard Weekend against Miami, and then would have to go on the road, something Mahomes and KC never had to do, and play as an underdog to win games in the divisional round. Against who? Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. Against who? Lamar Jackson in his relative lack of success in the postseason. And then, of course, to win a Lombardi trophy against the San Francisco 49ers. And Joe, here's why I actually believe the best bet is still Kansas City. Sure, the loss, their first of this year. It makes sense to tighten the gap between Buffalo and KC. I think the Bills are going to be there this year, once again, in a divisional round. Can they prove it, and can they reverse their playoff fortune? That remains to be seen. But why I believe Kansas City is the best bet to win the AFC is because more than likely, at least as of right now, the Chiefs still have the best record in the AFC. And yes, Buffalo would have that direct head-to-head tiebreaker, but Kansas City still has the best record. And as of this moment, in a bet I made yesterday, the Chiefs to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC is minus 180. Because then if the Chiefs have home field advantage once again, earn that opening round bye, and then would have to host 2 playoff games in Arrowhead, where they have hosted 5 of the previous 6 AFC Championship games, from a betting component, the Chiefs are not going to be an underdog at home in Arrowhead with a divisional round game or a conference championship at stake. They will be the favorite. So at plus 220 at this moment, only 70 cents in front of Buffalo, disregarding even the playoff outcomes against their nearest competition in the pedigree that Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs have rightfully earned. I think the plus 220 price is actually rather intriguing on Kansas City to win yet another AFC crown.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, listen, Kansas City is still the team to beat in the AFC. Now, would the road to getting home field advantage throughout been much better if they beat Buffalo? Sure, but they're still in the driver's seat. But they have some tough games coming up here, keep in mind. Chargers, but they're playing them at home. The Texans, they're playing them at home. The Steelers on the road, and then the Broncos on the road to close out the season. And I'll say this, the Steelers game could be the game that decides whether or not Kansas City locks up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But if we're being honest, Ben, do we really think Kansas City has to have home field advantage to win the AFC? I don't. And I don't think Buffalo does either, by the way. So it would be nice, but I don't think they need to have it in order to advance to the Super Bowl.
Right. And there is the narrative component of this conversation, right? Buffalo being bounced in the divisional round the last 3 seasons, bounced from the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years by the team still in front of them, that being Kansas City. Lamar Jackson, during his time with the Ravens, is just 2-4 straight up in playoff action. What is the ceiling of a young Houston Texans team? What is the ceiling of the Pittsburgh Steelers to round out the top 5 in terms of those AFC Championship game odds? And Joe, to your point, Kansas City's toughest game still on the docket, more than likely the Christmas road game on a Wednesday in the Steel City. The Pittsburgh Steelers still in conversation for that top overall seed, and maybe should be getting a little bit more love than that plus 950 price to win the AFC, because they're 8-2. They might have the division over the Baltimore Ravens, and they still have Buffalo, or they still have Kansas City on the docket as well to try to change the fortune as that number 1 team in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Ben, that's going to be the game that decides if KC locks it up or not here. Because I do think Pittsburgh very much alive. And again, 5-0 against teams with winning records. That is why they should be taken seriously, the Steelers here, and they have the Chiefs in front of them. Boy, it's going to be
Buffalo's schedule, Buffalo's schedule, perhaps the easiest of those 3 teams in conversation by this week. But then the Niners and the Lions in 2 of their next 3 after. More on the early line next.
Yep.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take the Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little,
you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you picking your own sheep because I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben.
Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, it's going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Exactly 1 week ago, we tried to explain and learn on the fly as best we could the second iteration of the in-season competition in the association, the 2024 Emirates NBA Cup. Well, it's night number 3 now. Last Tuesday was the opening night. Friday night, a ton of games as well. And this Tuesday, NBA Cup action, group play continues. And in Group East C, Joe, we've got an absolute banger of a marquee matchup on this Tuesday in Beantown. It's the reigning NBA champs and the favorites to win the NBA Cup and the NBA championship this year, the Boston Celtics, who, oh, by the way, are still 11-3 against the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, a perfect 15-0 beginning to this 2024-25 season, the fourth ever 15-0 start in history of the NBA. So a marquee matchup on night number 3 of the NBA Cup inside TD Garden that sees the Celtics as a 5.5-point home favorite and a total of 236. A couple of trends from my perspective. Perfect 15-0 start for the Cavs. They have been an underdog only twice. Of course, they have won outright in both of those games as a dog. The Celtics, 11-3 straight up this year, a favorite in all 14 games. Joe, so favored to do everything this year, the Celtics. They have been not only booked as a favorite in all 14 NBA games this year for Boston, they've only been a single-digit favorite 5 times out of those 14 games, often laying double digits. They're 3-2 against the number in those 5 games, laying only a single digit. Marquee matchup tonight in Beantown. What do you like?
It's kind of hard not to be totally impressed with what Cleveland is doing. But at the same time, Ben, can we all just agree that quietly what Cleveland is doing is how you build dynasties? When you guys take into consideration what they signed over the last year, they come in and bring in a new head coach, plenty of success during the regular season. There was nothing to complain about for Cleveland during the regular season. They would fall apart during the playoffs. So what did they do? They went out and extended Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro, Jared Allen. These guys are all signed for the next 5 years. Now you got Darius Garland and Max Strus under the next 3 years under team control. That is how you build championships here, Ben. It's no surprise to me that they're having this kind of start because these guys have already been together for how long? It's the same thing with Boston. What's going to win this game is going to be who is better at shooting the rock from 3.
Yeah.
And ultimately right now, I don't think anybody is better than Cleveland. 42% from deep, and that is impressive. Will the defense of Boston be able to do something? They're allowing just 33% from 3 this year. To me, that's what this is all about. If the Boston defense beats the Cleveland Cavaliers 3-point shooting, Boston will win. If they don't, Boston gets run out of the gym tonight.
So this, of course, counts towards your regular season record, which could be critical come the end of the year for playoff positioning between these two teams atop a relatively weak Eastern Conference. Again, when you look at the Eastern Conference this year, these two teams are 2 of 4 that are above 500, along with the Magic and the Knicks.
Yep.
That's it. The only 2 other teams above 500. Boston 11-3. Cleveland, of course, is a perfect 15-0. But it's also important for NBA Cup positioning in standings as well. And Joe, in Group EC, we knew it was going to be difficult for the Celtics, despite being the pre-NBA Cup favorites, to win said cup because Cleveland was also in that group in the Eastern Conference. And then the Celtics in their NBA Cup opener exactly a week ago as a 16-point favorite against the Hawks, lost outright 117-116. In fact, Atlanta is a perfect 2-0 in NBA Cup competition this season. The only in-season competition game so far for Cleveland last week against Chicago. They scored 144 points and covered against the Bulls as a 10-point favorite. So important game for NBA Cup competition as well, where we know we have seen some high scoring affairs because everybody around the league understands point differential will matter in ultimate tiebreakers to determine if you advance to the quarterfinal and knockout round. 236 the total, Joe. Are we going to see a lot of offense tonight inside TD Garden?
And again, this is, I think, without a doubt, if you like the Cavs to win this, they're going to do it from the perimeter, although they have been absolutely ridiculous on their percentage from inside 2-point range as well. This total opened at the 233.5. We've already seen this thing be bet up 3 points. And I agree. Yeah. I think this is going to be much closer to a wild shootout than it is going to be any sort of lockdown playoff defensive style of basketball. I think they let it fly here tonight. The question is, can that defense, that perimeter defense of Boston that has been phenomenal this year, can they neutralize the three-point shooting of the Cavs? Either way, I still think it flies over the total.
Interesting for Cleveland, and their 2 games winning outright as a dog this year against the Knicks and the Bucks. Total stayed under, but this is NBA Cup competition where that point differential is critical. Elsewhere out in the East, Group A action, 2 teams that lost their NBA Cup opener, the Hornets and the Nets. Not nearly as much of a marquee matchup as that first game in the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn, 3-point home favorite inside the Barclays Center, total at 221. What do you like in this matchup in BK?
I like Brooklyn a lot. I have liked them a lot here, Ben. I mean, given this team is actually playing good defense. They're actually able to shoot the ball. I thought it got away from them in the Knicks in that last game, but they should have won the first one that they played the other night. And I think Brooklyn bounces back against a weak Charlotte team here. I think they get one and rather easily in this one.
2 straight in a borough battle against the Knickerbockers. They did cover, only losing by 2 in the NBA Cup opener on Friday as an 8.5-point dog. The Nets, only a favorite 3 times this year. They're 2-1 straight up and against the spread, and a lot of points in those games. Around the Western Conference and NBA Cup action next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
What did I miss you picking your own sheep? Because I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. But that's what your grandma would do to you. Go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, it's going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
NBA Cup action, 6 games on this third night of NBA Cup action in the in-season competition here in 2024-25. And, Joe, now we go to the 4 games tonight in the Western Conference. We showed you the 2 in the Eastern Conference with the marquee matchup of the evening in Boston between the Cavaliers, undefeated at 15-0, and the Celtics. Let's start, of course, with the LA Lakers. At home and hoping to defend that NBA Cup after winning the first ever in-season tournament a year ago. 11-point spread in favor of Los Angeles against the Utah Jazz. Total at 234. This is West Group B, where to start off NBA Cup action, the Lakers won their first game. The Jazz did not. Will the Lakers win comfortably tonight in Los Angeles?
Yeah, the Lakers at home is a spot where I want to back them. It's the road that I've got a problem. I think with Utah, what the hell's the difference? They can't win at home. Yeah. They can't win on the road. No Walker Kessler, I believe, which means they'll have absolutely no answer for Anthony Davis. So I'll be buying Anthony Davis props here tonight. And I don't hate laying the 11 as the Lakers understand tiebreakers and how this whole thing works by winning by margin. Would not shock me if it's a total blowout by the Lakers here tonight.
Lakers have won in 5 straight. They have covered in 3 of those 5. The Jazz in their last 7 losses have only covered the number once. Utah has been an underdog for every single game, or at least a good majority of games this season. As I count them up, every single game, Utah has been the underdog in all 13, and they're just 3-10 straight up. Should be a comfortable win in West Group B for LA. That also features the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are also a perfect 1-0. They head to San Antonio tonight to take on Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. OKC, 9.5-point road favorite. Total stands at 222.5. What's the play in San Antonio?
Yeah, it kind of feels like an over, doesn't it, Ben, here, as we have seen this OKC team trying to navigate through their big man not being checked, not being available to them. They've gone up-tempo in this spot. They just lost, I believe, 119 to Dallas on Sunday. Another game that flew over the total. And from this point on, Ben, that's all I'll be looking at is up and overs in the Oklahoma City games. They're not playing a half-court game anymore. They've gone small. They've gone up-tempo, and I don't see any reason for them not to do the same exact thing. They won't have an answer for Wembanyama tonight, so up and over for me, that 222.5 is a little light.
2 of the 4 games for OKC without Chet have gone over, but not their NBA Cup opener. By NBA Cup standards, a very low-scoring affair, 99-83 against the shorthanded Suns, who lost that game without Kevin Durant. San Antonio lost its NBA Cup opener against the LA Lakers on Friday by 5, did not cover as a 2.5-point dog, but the game did go over. I lean with you, Joe. I think we see some points tonight over 222.5. A lot still outstanding for this next NBA Cup game between the Nuggets and the Grizzlies in West Group C. Memphis, 4-point home favorite in the Grind City. 227 is the total. Will Nikola Jokic play? He has missed the last 2 games for the Nugs, 2 straight losses, snapping a 5-game win streak for Denver. Denver has gone over in all 7 wins this year, but under in a large way in each of their last 2 losses, including by 15 to the Grizzlies over the weekend. If Jokic plays, give me some points, but that 4-point spread, I think, indicates as of right now his status very uncertain.
Yeah, I mean, he's personal reasons. There are some questions on whether he had the birth of his child. But there is no clarification one way or the other. And we saw, listen, depth is a problem on Denver, Ben. We've been saying it. It's going to be a problem all year. You take Jokic out of that equation now, and it's no wonder they're not getting to triple digits here offensively. I mean, they just lost to Memphis 105-90, and Memphis pushed them around, Ben. And they got to be careful. If they don't bring the physicality in this one, they're going to get pushed around again by this Memphis team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, Memphis just 1 cover in their first 5 games of the year. They have now covered in 8 of their last 9. They are 8-6. Let's get you out to West Group C. Yep. 1 final game here just to show you the numbers. The Mavericks, 12-point favorite now at home against the Pelicans. The Pels are having a disastrous season, but they did win their NBA Cup opener on Friday against the Nuggets. Sans Nikola Jokic. More in college hoops comes your way next.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, guys?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
From NBA Cup action to some top 25 tilts tonight on the hardwood in college basketball, the best game of this Tuesday night slate takes place in Milwaukee. It's Marquette as a 4.5-point home favorite, now the number 15 team in the country, taking on a Purdue team that has moved up the board in terms of the rankings yesterday. They moved up by 7 spots. They are now ranked 6th in the nation. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Golden Eagles as they welcome in the Boilermakers tonight. A couple of huge wins for these two programs, Joe, over the weekend, both on Friday. Marquette won outright as a short underdog in College Park against Maryland on Friday evening. Purdue as a home dog in Mackey against then number 2 Alabama. A very impressive victory. Here is Marquette now as a favorite against the Boilermakers tonight in Milwaukee. What's the play?
Yeah, this Purdue team, I still have my question marks. I mean, both these teams come in 4-0, which is nice. Marquette at home now with Shaka Smart. What are they, 9-1, I believe, in their last 10. They don't tend to lose very often. And the thing that concerns me with Purdue is that if it isn't Brandon Smith, their 3 guys here, they don't have any bench. They didn't add anybody in the transfer portal, Ben. The bulk of their scoring comes from Smith, Wren, and Lawyer. Those are their 3 guys that combine for 51 points a game. Outside of that, they got nobody, absolutely no production from the bench whatsoever, and I think that's going to be a problem against Marquette at home, because if Marquette defensively has the kind of effort I believe they're going to bring here, man, one of those guys has an off night for Purdue, you're not winning this game on the road. And I think Marquette at 4.5 is actually pretty cheap.
A lot of great experience back for Shaka Smart's team. You look at names like Cam Jones, David Joplin, Stevie Mitchell, names that we have seen for Marquette in the last few years. Braden Smith is back for Purdue, the best point guard in the country, in my estimation. Fletcher Lawyer can hit the long ball, and Trey Kaufman-Wren has been huge for Purdue and was huge against Alabama on Friday night. So was C.J. Cox, the young player for this Purdue team that stepped up in a big way and lit a fire to this Purdue offense from deep on Friday night against the Tide. But when you look at Marquette in this spot inside the Pfizer Forum, it just seems like the numbers make sense to see the Golden Eagles as a 4.5-point favorite. Again, these are going to be two good teams, both in contention to win their conference crowns. Big Ten action for the Boilermakers. Does the conference still run through Purdue? That we shall debate with Jon Rothstein in just a little bit. And Marquette, of course, will be competitive in a highly competitive Big East along the lines of UConn, Creighton, and St. John's. Some other notable Tuesday games, Joe, around the country. The number one team in action, Kansas, 23.5-point favorite against UNC Wilmington at home in the Fog. UConn, now number 2 in the country, continues to dismantle teams in non-conference action. They haven't played all that many good teams so far, but a 37.5-point favorite. Kentucky up by 10 spots following what they did last Tuesday in the Champions Classic in the outright victory against Duke. Kentucky was 19th, now inside the top 10 at number 9. The Cats, Joe, 21.5-point favorite tonight against Lipscomb.
Yeah, and I will just mention, too, by the way, that win against Alabama was at Mackey Arena. They ain't playing at Mackey Arena tonight for Purdue. So that's going to be a different animal altogether here. Am I nuts here, Ben, or am I just going to have to call the outright upset here with Hofstra taking down Florida State? I said it, and there it is. I'll just leave it out. I think Hofstra, what is it, getting 7.5 here. I think they're a live dog here tonight. And I think the line is way off, by the way, with Louisiana taking on Rice here tonight. My number has this game much higher than what we're seeing, than what it should be right now. And I think that's a short number. So that's another one off the board here that you've got yourself a pretty good spot here to be able to win a couple of games and make some pretty decent money here tonight.
The pride of Hofstra going into Tallahassee and winning outright. That is what Joe Ranieri is saying against Florida State. It's a 7.5-point spread right now in favor of the Noles. Florida's still a top 25 team. They're laying 35.5 against FAMU. Just quickly on Connecticut. They have been favored by at least 35 points in all 3 games this year. They have covered the number in all 3. They have scored 90-plus in all 3. They continue to dismantle teams in non-conference action. And, oh, by the way, in all 3 wins this year for Dan Hurley's Huskies, the total has stayed under. Dan Hurley does not need motivation, but the fact perhaps that Connecticut is not number 1 in the country early here in the season continues to provide that. Kentucky did not go over against Duke last Tuesday night in Atlanta in the Champions Classic, but in the 2 non-power conference matchups for Kentucky, they have scored at least 100 and gone over. I expect them to find some really good offense tonight against Lipscomb. I'll highlight 2 Big Ten games off the board. How about Samford heading into the Breds tonight to take on Michigan State? Total 160.5. We know Samford, based on what they did last year in that 5-12 matchup against Kansas, can play with some pace. I like the over of 160.5. Montana State already covered earlier this year in a Big Ten game against Wisconsin. They are not as good as they were with Danny Sprinkle, who now, of course, is the head coach over at Washington. Just 1-3 this year, Joe, but I think they might keep it within the number against a Northwestern team that is just 1-3 against the spread this year. That's a 15.5-point spread in favor of the Wildcats tonight.
Yeah, that's just not a no. That number is absolutely absurd. No, absolutely. I can't, Ben. I would much rather. No, I'll tell you what I would play, though. If you're going to look at a game that just seems to be completely off, how is Villanova laying 2 touchdowns against anybody? Am I missing against Penn? I mean, it feels like a dead under. But there's no way I trust Neptune and Villanova here to be winning any games by margin at this particular point. It's either Dixon or bust. I think it's a bust, and I think the under is probably the best look in that game.
Again, it's a Big 5 battle, right, in Philadelphia for Villanova. And what happened exactly a week ago against St. Joe's as a slight favorite? They lost that game outright. It has been an uneasy beginning to this season. They got beat by Virginia on Friday night in Baltimore in a game many people said, This isn't 2016 anymore for Nova. Things are getting bad really fast for Kyle Neptune, to the point where we might start having some scuttlebutt about maybe looking for a new head coach. The heir apparent to Jay Wright was always going to be difficult. I'll say this, Joe. Nova's gone over in all five games this year. 141.5 is the number tonight against Penn. Let's talk some action, baby, on a Tuesday night. Triple header of some MAC football. Kent State is the only winless team in all of FBS college football. They're getting 10.5 tonight against an Akron team that's not a whole lot better. I'm calling it. The Golden Flashes win their first game of the year tonight outright as a double-digit dog.
I mean, let me understand. Akron is laying 10.5 on the road? Akron. Yeah, no. I'm with you there, Ben. Give me as many points as you want. There's no way Akron should be laying double digits against anybody, even Kent State.
A very important game, Joe, at the bottom of that board as well. Miami of Ohio, 2.5 point spread in favor of the Hawks against Northern Illinois. NIU, the favorite, bad. Thomas Hammock in the Huskies as an underdog, really good. I might look to that 2.5 point number in that Northern Illinois is getting in this game.
Yeah, well, it's really, what is Northern Illinois playing for at this point here?
That's true.
That's going to be interesting. Miami of Ohio for me.
Joe Ranieri, we'll see you on Friday. We thank you for your time. Jon Rothstein here next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, guys?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you picking your own sheep? Because I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, it's going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
This is still November, and this is the start of week number 3 in full of the 2024-25 college basketball season, which means only one thing here on this Tuesday on the early line. Jon Rothstein is now on the show, of course, with CBS Sports, and here on SportsGrid on behalf of FanDuel. Rothstein, as always, we appreciate the time. Thank you for being here on this Tuesday. It's week number 3. And, John, we're 9 days away from Turkey Day, Thanksgiving. And in the week leading up to Turkey Day, It's when we get some of those great non-conference tournaments and the competition ramps up just a little bit.
It definitely does. I would say that if conference play is kind of the main appetizer for the college basketball season, Feast Week is the charcuterie board. And Ben, nobody loves a good meat and cheese plate more than me.
Jon Rothstein always knows how to put together a charcuterie board, and we'll do that here on this Tuesday. John, a really good game tonight in Milwaukee inside the Pfizer Forum. It's a top 15 tilt between Marquette, who is 15th in the country after a good win on Friday against Purdue's fellow Big Ten team in Maryland, and Purdue up 7 spots to number 6 in the country after winning outright as a home underdog against Alabama in Mackey on Friday night as well. Love having you here early in the season. Not so much to break down the game, but really what we're going to learn about both teams in this marquee matchup. Let's start with the Boilermakers, a road dog in Milwaukee. But John, of course, after losing Zach Edey, what do college basketball fans need to know about this year's version of the Boilermakers?
The 3 returning starters for Purdue from last year's team that lost in the national title game to UConn, Braden Smith, Flesher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renn, are the epicenter of this team. That's the Boilers' big 3. Braden Smith right now is playing like one of the best 4 or 5 guards in all of college basketball. He's filling the box score, dishing, rebounding, scoring. And Trey Kaufman-Renn is giving Purdue a different look as an interior focal point. 26-8 against Alabama last week at Mackey Arena. And, one thing I want to point out, I was at a Purdue practice 2 years ago, and Matt Painter told me Trey Kaufman-Renn has all Big Ten first-team ability. We might just not see that for a couple of years because he's playing next to somebody up front named Zach Edey. Trey Kaufman-Renn has the goods, and I firmly think that Purdue found a lineup down the stretch of the game last week when Trey Kaufman-Renn slid to the 5 and Cam Heide played the 4. Better spacing for Purdue on offense.
Some of that depth will be in question, but the freshman C.J. Cox, who had 11 burying 3 triples on Friday night against the Crimson Tide, providing that offensive spark. Marquette, the victory already against Maryland, remaining in the top 15. And John, a 4.5-point favorite at home tonight. Shaka Smart's team returns a lot of experience. What do you anticipate the Golden Eagles show tonight against Purdue?
Another showcase game for Cam Jones, who is playing right now like a first-team All-American. And it's not just how well he's playing, it's how efficiently he's playing. Right now, entering tonight's game against Purdue, Cam Jones is shooting over 54% from 3, averaging 24 a game, 5-6 assists, rebounding the basketball. Ben, you know as well as I do that's illegal in 48 states. Marquette doesn't have what it had last season with Kolek and Oso Ighodaro, but it still has enough to be one of the best teams in the Big East. Shaka Smart has built a culture of retention at Marquette. The Golden Eagles and the Boilers, 2 programs in college basketball that did not bring in a transfer during the offseason. But Ben, you know as well as I do, this is only November.
It is only November, but experience certainly matters in March. Let's go to the Big East. Connecticut in action tonight. 37.5-point favorite is UConn. They've been dismantling teams, as we have seen, throughout non-conference action in the last 2+ years. Still the favorites, Dan Hurley's Huskies, to win the Big East at plus 135. John, including Marquette, if you were to look elsewhere around the league, who is UConn's best competition in the Big East?
I see 5 teams right now at the top of the Big East that are in NCAA tournament contention. UConn, Creighton, Marquette are the returning commodities from last season. And now a healthy Xavier with Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter back under Sean Miller looks to me like a clear-cut NCAA tournament team. And St. John's under Rick Pitino with Kadari Richmond, Davon Smith, and Simeon Wiltshire in the backcourt looks like an NCAA tournament team. This is a very, very big week for the Red Storm, who will play Baylor in Baha Mar on Thursday, then either Tennessee or Virginia on Friday, followed up by a game against Georgia, potential bubble team out of the SEC on Sunday. So the Red Storm will know in the next 6 days a lot about where they stand moving forward in year 2 under Rick Pitino.
And, John, quickly back to the Big Ten. Purdue still booked as the favorites to win a conference championship this season. In your estimation, does a Big Ten regular season title still run through West Lafayette?
Yes, until proven otherwise. I think you can make the case that Indiana has the best roster in the Big Ten with the additions of Miles Rice, Umar Ballo, Luke Goody, Ken Carlisle. But the best team until proven otherwise is Purdue. But Ben, you are a Big Ten, let's just say, connoisseur. You can't get enough of the Big Ten in all sports. And as a connoisseur, you will appreciate what I'm going to say. Last year, the brands in the Big Ten did not resonate throughout the college basketball season. Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State all missed the NCAA tournament. That will not happen in 2025. I think you have an excellent chance to get those three brands, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio State, plus UCLA, who is now in the league, all in March Madness in 2025.
John, you know as well as I, it's been nearly 2.5 decades since the Big Ten as a conference won a championship in men's college basketball. As we go elsewhere on this Tuesday, we showed you UConn, number 1 Kansas in action. Kentucky now a top 10 team, laying 21.5 against Lipscomb. John, of this board in the final minute of this segment, what other game catches your eye on this Tuesday night?
Cincinnati at Northern Kentucky. Cincinnati has not played a true road game this season. It's a big week for the Bearcats, who will also play at Georgia Tech on Saturday. And keep an eye on Speedy Claxton and Hofstra, picked 4th in the CAA preseason poll. But in the last week, Hofstra has beaten Seton Hall, won a bye game at UMass, and will now try to do the same thing tonight in Tallahassee against Florida State. If there's one thing that Florida State fans don't want on a Tuesday, it's simple. It's the epitome of brutality.
Nobody wants that, John, during non-conference action. Jon Rothstein, as always, thank you for your time. College football playoff rankings talk next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all along, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, guys?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you picking your own sheet because I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, it's going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We round out our Tuesday show live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid by getting you set each and every week here in November into early December of what we are going to see in the college football playoff rankings reveal. It is week number 3, the third time we have done this season, and the third time in the 12-team college football playoff era. In the conjecture, in the conversation, in the heated and passionate debate, is already starting to build. The strength of the SEC, the relative depth of the conference, bolstering up resumes. Who could walk into the Southeastern Conference and go undefeated? Nobody, because nobody is perfect right now in the SEC. And your weak Big Ten. If Indiana can be 10-0, then the conference must stink, right? Because 4 of the top 5 teams in the country currently hail from the Big Ten, but nobody else. Illinois now into the AP Top 25 as of this weekend. Will we see multiple ACC or multiple Big 12 teams into the first ever 12-team format in the college football playoff? All of these questions and conversations are going to ramp up in intensity over the next few weeks. And if somebody tells you that this doesn't matter, the only one that matters is that final Sunday after conference championship weekend, politely ask them to never speak to you again because they do not know what they are saying. Here is why these rankings matter on a week-to-week basis. First and foremost, the committee shares their precedent, the criteria they use to examine the entirety of the season of college football. Here's what we have found so far. Head-to-head is important. Strength of schedule hasn't mattered all that much in resume. And that's about it. We shall see if that changes in these next few weeks. Secondly, here is why, in my estimation, it is even more important. Because as an exercise, as a task for the CFP selection committee, where they put teams each and every week, must matter. Because it shows a team on the outside looking in of an opening round bye, of hosting an on-campus college football playoff game, of getting into the 12-team field. How much ground must be made up in the teams standing in their way from keeping them on the outside of a college football playoff? And if you're on the inside, what would have to happen for you to falter and to step back out of the top 12? Whew. I'm already heated. I know this is going to be a tough Tuesday night. My voice hanging on by a literal thread at this moment. So, from the odds component, I will give us credit, or perhaps the FanDuel Sportsbook credit, for being pretty spot on what the odds are each and every week to what the eventual top 12 in bracket starts to look like. Of course, getting into the top 12 and a projected bracket are different things. So we go through the odds, both your price to reach the college football playoff and how it correlates to your conference championship number. Those top 4 teams earning an opening round bye as being the 4 highest ranked conference champs out of the 5 highest ranked conference title winners. Oregon's price so good to reach the college football playoff, it's no longer listed. I'll mention something about the Big Ten in just a matter of moments, but Oregon has already clinched a spot in that conference championship game in Indianapolis. Texas is still the favorite to win a jumbled SEC at minus 1,200. Look at those odds. Put it back up once again. Boise State, a better CFP price and a heavy favorite to win the Mountain West than Miami. So Boise State would be the 3 seed, and Miami would be the 4th and final to earn that opening round bye. So who would be the 5th highest ranked conference champ, or at least the 5th most likely conference champ to reach the college football playoff? From the odds, it's Colorado. The Buffaloes now in even money, plus 100 favorite to win the Big 12, but they check in at number 12 in our projected bracket. So the at-larges are as so. Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Alabama, Ole Miss, Indiana, and Notre Dame. There are 11 teams right now that are favored on the FanDuel Sportsbook to make the CFP. Miami, the worst of those 11 teams that have a minus in front of their CFP price at now minus 188. Miami remains the favorite to win the SEC, but SMU, second best number and unbeaten in conference play. A lot to be decided in the Big 12 and in the SEC. There is so much you can hardly even fathom, and Ohio State is the favorite to win the Big 10, despite Oregon having that best price. So much. A Wednesday. The show returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern on the Early Line.